Hello and welcome to World Today, which is news from around the world. I'm Sohaila Kapur. The first story is about the conflict between Saudi Arabia and Iran over the beheading of the Shiite cleric in Saudi Arabia. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told the Saudi foreign minister that Riyadh's decision to break off diplomatic ties with Iran was deeply worrying, according to a spokesman for the United Nations.
UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon told the Saudi foreign minister that Riyadh's decision to break off diplomatic ties with Iran was deeply worrying, a spokesman for the United Nations said.
The Secretary General called today His Excellency Mr. Abdel Al-Jubeir, the Foreign Minister of Saudi Arabia. The Secretary General also spoke by telephone yesterday with the Foreign Minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Mohammad Javad Zarif. Speaking to Foreign Minister Zarif, the Secretary General recalled his statement on the execution of Sheikh Al-Nimr and 46 other prisoners by Saudi Arabia on the 2nd of January. He further recalled his condemnation of the attack at the Saudi embassy in Tehran and urged Foreign Minister Zarif to take the necessary measures to protect diplomatic facilities in the country. Speaking to Foreign Minister Al-Jubeir, the Secretary General reiterated his views on capital punishment and his disappointment at the execution of Sheikh Al-Nimr, and whose case the Secretary General has raised with Saudi authorities on several occasions. The Secretary General also reiterated that the attack on the Saudi embassy in Tehran was deplorable, but added that the announcement of a break in Saudi diplomatic relations with Tehran was deeply worrying. The Secretary General urged both foreign ministers to avoid any action that could further exacerbate the situation between the two countries and in the region as a whole. He stressed the importance of continued constructive engagement by both countries in the interest of the region and beyond.
The White House, too, urged Saudi Arabia and Iran to show restraint in the crisis spurred by the execution of the senior cleric.
The White House urges Saudi Arabia and Iran to show restraint in the crisis spurred by the execution of a senior Shiite cleric by Saudi Arabia.
Julie, we do continue to be concerned about the need for both the Iranians and the Saudis to de-escalate the situation in the Middle East. That we're urging all sides to show some restraint and to not further inflame tensions that are on quite vivid display in the region. More recently, there have been direct concerns raised by U.S. officials to Saudi officials about the potential damaging consequences of following through on the execution, on mass executions, in particular the execution of Al-Nimr, the political opposition figure, but also the religious leader. And this is a concern that we raised with the Saudis in advance. Unfortunately, the concerns that we expressed to the Saudis have precipitated the kinds of consequences that we were concerned about.
Pakistani Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif arrived in Sri Lanka on January 4th for a two-day visit aiming at strengthening relations between the two South Asian countries.
Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif arrived in Sri Lanka on January 4th for a two-day visit aiming at strengthening relations between the two countries. Sharif was welcomed at the international airport by Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Two countries are expected to sign a number of bilateral agreements in the field of trade, science, technology and health.
US President Barack Obama said he was confident his new executive actions to tighten US gun rules were consistent with the constitutional right to bear arms and said that the initiatives would be rolled out over the next several days.
Well, Happy New Year, everybody.
President Barack Obama said that he was confident his new executive actions to tighten U.S. gun rules were consistent with the constitutional right to bear arms and said the new initiatives would be rolled out over the next several days.
Before the new year, I mentioned that I had given the charge to my Attorney General, FBI Director, Deputy Director at the ATF, and personnel in my White House to work together to see what more we could do to prevent the scourge of gun violence in this country. We have a frequency of mass shootings that far exceeds other countries in frequency. And although it is my strong belief that for us to get our complete arms around the problem, Congress needs to act. What I asked my team to do is to see what more we could do to strengthen our enforcement and prevent guns from falling into the wrong hands. I have just received back a report from Attorney General Lynch, Director Comey, as well as Deputy Director Brandon, about some of the ideas and initiatives that they think can make a difference. And the good news is that these are not only recommendations that are well within my legal authority and the executive branch, but they're also ones that the overwhelming majority of the American people, including gun owners, support and believe in. Over the next several days, we'll be rolling out these initiatives. We'll be making sure that people have a very clear understanding of what can make a difference and what we can do. And although we have to be very clear that this is not going to solve every violent crime in this country, it's not going to prevent every mass shooting, it's not going to keep every gun out of the hands of a criminal, it will potentially save lives in this country and spare families the pain and the extraordinary loss that they've suffered as a consequence of a firearm being in the hands of the wrong people. I'm also confident that the recommendations that are being made by my team here are ones that are entirely consistent with the Second Amendment and people's lawful right to bear arms.
Reactions to President Obama's proposed gun control measures are mixed.
I think it's brilliant and it's about time. More people have died, more Americans have died by Americans' hands than in the last two wars. So I think it's about time they did some background check and try to keep the guns out of the hands of the crazy.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the regulations as they are now. If they just enforce the laws that we currently have in the books, I think that'd go a long ways to solving a lot of the problems. They just don't do that. I'm not a big fan of big government. I'm not a big fan of additional rules. Enforce the stuff that you got first.
Well, we tried to go through Congress, but they won't pass any laws because of the NRA. They're so powerful. So he's got to do something about it. He's tired of so many children dying every year, so I don't blame him.
I mean, what is the problem with doing a background check for a gun? What is the problem with that? And I don't understand why half of the Americans have a problem with that.
I'm completely against it. It's against the Second Amendment because of the infringement on the ability to bear arms. And in my personal opinion, I think it's unconstitutional and shouldn't happen.
I think we have a ridiculously high rate of gun violence in our country compared to other countries, so something really needs to be done about it, and I'm glad that he made that decision.
We're going in for a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back to World Today, which is a gathering of news from around the world. Former US President Bill Clinton made his first solo appearance campaigning for his wife and Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election on January 4th.
Former US President Bill Clinton made his first solo appearance campaigning for his wife and Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton in the 2016 presidential election on January 4th. He spoke at a campaign event in the key primary state of New Hampshire and said nobody in his lifetime has been better qualified to be president than Hillary Clinton.
It's very important that we stand against terrorists who try to abuse religion for any purpose and any religion to murder people. It's important that we not be chumps when we decide what security provisions should be employed to check people's background. But we don't want to run away from the place we've been. That America is a place that welcomes all people who are willing to treat other people the way they'd like to be treated, willing to follow the law, willing to create a common community. And we need to recognize something that has received almost no attention in this election, which is that in all probability, the next President of the United States will make between 1 and 3 appointments to the United States Supreme Court. And I know who I want doing that. She understands what it takes to keep our country as safe as possible, to stop big bad things from happening and make as many good things happen as possible. When she was Secretary of State, she negotiated those sanctions on Iran and unbelievably got Russia and China to sign off on them. I didn't think she could do that. And they made a difference. Even the people that don't like the Iranian nuclear deal agree the sanctions were good. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I do not believe in my lifetime anybody has run for this job at a moment of great importance who was better qualified by knowledge, experience, and temperament to do what needs to be done now to restore prosperity, to deal with these human issues, to make us as safe as possible. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Sweden began checking documents of travelers from Denmark on January 4th for the first time in half a century, amid a record influx of migrants.
Sweden began checking documents of travelers from Denmark on January 4th for the first time in half a century amid a record influx of migrants. Travelers taking the train to the southern Swedish city of Malmö had their IDs checked at the Kastrup station of Copenhagen's main airport before being allowed to board. The move caused delays of up to 50 minutes for trains and buses crossing the 7.9-kilometer Øresund Bridge, Europe's longest combined road and rail bridge. However, private vehicles were exempt from the checks.
Denmark too imposed temporary identity checks on its border with Germany on Monday, following a similar move by Sweden, dealing a double blow to Europe's fraying passport-free Schengen area amid a record influx of migrants.
Denmark imposed temporary identity checks on its border with Germany on Monday, following a similar move by Sweden, dealing a double blow to Europe's fraying passport-free Schengen area amid a record influx of migrants. Danish border guards were seen carrying out random checks on the A7 motorway border crossing the Allen, Germany on Monday evening, checking the identities of several motorists at a makeshift checkpoint. Denmark's Prime Minister said Sweden's move gave his country no option but to impose its own border controls, and he appealed to the European Union to take collective decisions to better protect its external borders against the tide of migrants. Last year, some 1,63,000 refugees sought asylum in Sweden, the largest number for any EU country relative to its population. But with arrivals running at around 10,000 a week in November, mostly travelling through Denmark, the Swedish government has said it is time to tighten border controls and asylum rules. ID-free travel within the Nordic region, long a popular magnet for migrants due to its high standards of living and generous social welfare benefits, dates back long before the Schengen Accord to the 1950s, where Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland and Iceland signed a passport union.
The Rio de Janeiro stadium that will host athletics at the 2016 Olympic Games has been without water and electricity over the past week due to unpaid bills. According to Brazilian media reports, the stadium owes some $225,000 in outstanding utility bills.
The Rio de Janeiro stadium that will host athletics at the 2016 Olympic Games has been without water and electricity over the past week due to unpaid bills, according to Brazilian media reports. The stadium owes some $225,000 in outstanding utility bills. The 45,000 capacity arena built for the 2007 Pan American Games became the home ground of Rio's Botafogo Soccer Club, which signed a 20-year agreement with the city's government. The club has been responsible for all the stadium's costs since then, but in 2013, the Enjao has been closed for repairs after officials discovered the roof was in danger of collapse. 2 years later, the stadium reopened for Botafogo soccer matches, but the club officially returned the arena's management to the government this month for Olympic preparations. Botafogo managers claim the recent utility bills should be paid by the government because the club did not receive the payments owed to them. During the 2-year period, the arena remained closed for repairs.
That's all for World Today. We'll see you tomorrow, same time. Till then, goodbye.